Hello, my name is Annika and welcome to the Sewing Nook. In this video I'm going to be showing you how I made this perfect pair of pajamas. Okay, let's talk about what you need for this project. Number one, of course, is fabric. I would recommend something that's lightweight and comfortable and has a little bit of stretch to it. Number two, you're going to need a pattern, and I'm using Simplicity 9267, and I'm only using it for the shorts, and then I'm going to self-draft a pattern for the top. And then number three, you're going to need some elastic. I used 1-inch non-fold. This is the fabric that I'll be using for this project. It is a minty green sort of color, and it's a real light, breathable knit, which will be perfect for a summer pair of pajamas. I'm going to start with the shorts, and I already cut everything out, but I did want to show that I added 1.5 inches on the top and about 1 inch on the bottom just to make sure they were the length I wanted. So now I have my front and back short pieces, my waistband, and my pockets. I'm going to mark the 2 dots along the sides of the front panels where the pockets go, and then serge along both of those sides. The next few steps are to clip where we made those marks and fold that towards the wrong side and sew it down, and that's going to be the opening for our pocket. And then take our pocket piece and serge around the curved edge and sew that onto the wrong side of the front piece, making sure that you don't sew along the opening for the pocket. Hopefully that makes sense, but as you do it, it will make more sense. Okay, here's how the pockets are looking now. This is the right side of the front panels, and you can see the top stitch, but I actually think it looks kind of nice. So now I'm going to take a quick look at the instructions and see what I need to do next. Okay, the next step is to take the front and back pieces and sew them right sides together along the inner leg seam like this. Here's what mine is looking like so far, and I'm going to repeat those steps for the other 2 pieces and then lay them right sides together matching at the leg seam and then serge along that curved edge. Here's how they look after I serged them, and now I'm going to take the back panel and place it right sides together along one of the front panel and do this for both of them like this, and then serge along that edge, making sure that I do all of the raw edges by where the pocket opening is. I also serged the bottom of the short legs and then folded them about 1/2 inch towards the wrong side and sewed them down. Next, I'm going to take my 2 waistband pieces and serge them together right sides together along the shorter edge. I'm going to give those seams a good press and then fold one of the edges towards the wrong side about 1/4 inch. I'm going to place the waistband right sides onto the wrong sides of the shorts, making sure that the seams match up at the side seams of the shorts. And then I'm going to sew around the entire thing, making sure I sew the side that I did not fold up. Now I'm going to take that side that I folded and fold it over all of the raw edges onto the right side like this, and then sew around the entire thing, making sure to leave at least a 2-inch gap. Now I'm going to take a piece of elastic and measure it comfortably around my waist. You want to make sure that it's tight enough to stay on but not too uncomfortable. And then I'm going to use this, I'm pretty sure it's called a bodkin, and thread it through the casing. If you do not have one of these, you can just use a safety pin. Now that I have the elastic all the way through, I'm going to put one on top of the other and sew a zigzag stitch back and forth to make sure it's really secure. I stretched the waistband a little bit so that the elastic went back into the waistband, and now I'm going to sew that opening closed. And we are finished with our shorts. Now for the top of these pajamas, like I said before, I'm going to be using a self-drafted pattern, and this is just a very basic dress bodice piece. The changes I made to my pattern were I added 1.5 inches on the bottom of the center, and then it made it even at the top, and then added about 1 inch on the side and again made it even on the top. Then I decided I wanted to add a ruffle, so I cut out a piece that was 7 inches. I'm not sure how long it was, but I made it a little bit longer than the bodice pieces. If I were to make this again, I would have made the ruffle a little bit wider and a little bit longer, just so that it was a longer shirt and so that it had more of a ruffle. But at this point, I was starting to run out of the fabric, and so this is what I was able to get out of it. I also wanted to add some sleeves, and I wanted them to be a little bit ruffled but not real long and not all the way around the armhole, so I measured it and it was about 13 inches that I needed. Since I did want it to be able to ruffle a little bit, I cut out 2 rectangles that were 18 inches by 6 inches. Now that I have those cut out, I just kind of eyeballed it and drew a curve to give it a sleeve kind of shape. I left about 1.5 inches on the bottom where I would attach it to the bodice. Now I'm going to cut that out and show you what it looks like. Here's what it looks like after I cut it out, and now I'm going to serge the curved edge, and that's going to be the end of the sleeve, and the straight edge is going to be what I attach to the bodice. So I'm going to serge that and then fold it towards the wrong side and sew it down. Here's how the sleeves are looking so far. I just gave them a good press, and now I'm going to sew 2 rows of gathering stitches on both of the bottoms of these. And then I'm also going to sew 2 rows of gathering stitches on the top of the ruffle. Now I'm going to take the 2 top threads of one of the sides of the gathering stitches and gather my ruffle until it's the same width as my bodice piece. One thing I would recommend when gathering fabric is to gather the top threads instead of the bobbin threads. This just makes it a lot easier whenever you're removing them later on in the project. Now I'm going to place the ruffle right sides together onto the bodice piece and then serge them together. Now I'm going to remove the gathering stitches that are visible, and this is what I was talking about earlier. It's just a lot easier whenever you use the top threads because it just comes out so easy, especially whenever you use knit material. I repeated all those steps for the other side of the shirt, and now I'm going to serge the shoulder seams together and the sides. And then I'm going to serge the entire bottom and then fold that towards the wrong side and sew it down. This is the part where I started getting very excited for this because it was almost complete, and the last thing I had to do was attach the sleeve. So I did the same thing like I did with the other ruffle. I just pulled the top threads and gathered it up till it was 13 inches. I put a pin on the halfway point of my sleeve and then put my sleeve right sides together to the armhole, making sure that that pin lined up with the shoulder of the armhole. And again, it's not going to go all the way around, it's only going to go about halfway down each side. Now I'm going to serge around the entire armhole and then remove all of the gathering stitches. Now I'm going to fold the underarm part where the sleeve did not hit towards the wrong side and sew that down. Here's how that sleeve looks after I've done all that. I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. And now the last thing to do is to serge around the entire neckline and fold that towards the wrong side and sew that down. And my summer pajamas are complete. I love how these turned out so much, and I hope y'all enjoyed watching this. I do want to go over a quick price of what this project cost. So I did get 2 yards of this fabric and it was on sale, so the total on that was about $10. And then the pattern I got at a thrift store for about $1. I'm going to say $1 for the elastic just because I can get quite a few uses out of one package. And then I'm going to add $1 for tax, and that makes the total come to $13, and I think this is a very reasonable price for a good pair of pajamas. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on making this and if you're going to do a solid color or a print. Thank you so much for watching. Please give it a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you haven't already.